Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Lindsi Sanor on the podcast. She's a mom of four, believe it or not. I mean, you're like 25 with no kids, but she's also a certified personal trainer and online coach. And she's coming to us from the great state of Idaho. But most importantly, she's our current guest. And we also have her dog here. So if you see your dog wandering around, that's her dog. And I mean, he's probably going to steal the podcast, let's be honest. But Lindsi, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Ryan, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to make that change and, adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Sure. Growing up, I was always into sports. And then I got married and we started having kids. And I really didn't have a go to of what I was doing. I just knew that it made me feel better. So I went through a phase where it was a couple months on, couple months off, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And then finally, it just clicked one day. And especially after I started having kids, where it was, okay, this is my time. And that was really important to me that I had my time. And well, really, it was just all about feeling better. It didn't even get to the whole physique part until later on.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the biggest things that we have, especially from the moms, is the having kids where then you realize, like also I want to, live long, I want to be healthy so that, I can spend as much time with them as possible. But I always love to say, I mean, if you were to go into a gym with 100 people, I mean, there's 100 ways that those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, I mean, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, how many exercises they do. I mean, there's just so many things that add up to the overall package. Was that hard for you when you were getting started finding out what worked best for you? Because I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what'd you train for this body part to make it look that good? What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
That's true. Everybody is different. You hit the nail on the head just perfect right out of the gate. It was hard. I never understood weights. So I started off cardio queen, and that was my main focus for a long time. When the weights came along, it started off kind of the same way where it was like, I know I'm supposed to do this. And I would go and do the basics like curls and shoulder press, squat, but I always worked the lower half more. That was, like you said, everybody's different. So I had to work mine 10 times harder than the normal. And so I kind of went in and out of what to do. I just did it because I was supposed to. And then came the day where I actually saw the muscle. And I was like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Holy cow, this is cool. And that's when it really became I wonder what I could do. So that was really the creation of where I am now. That was the start of it. And then it just grew from there. And since I did play high school sports, I had that competitiveness, and it became a little game with myself. Hey, I wonder what I could look like. I wonder what I could do with my legs and how I could look, but also how hard I could work out.
Yeah.
So that became a game. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, just pushing yourself, but you also bring up an interesting point because I always like to say, especially with the kids in my generation, I mean, they want the results now and they want them yesterday. I mean, they're not willing to put in the work to take it to, go to the next level or just to gain any amount of transformation. And it's hard for them because they don't realize that like it is months upon months before. I mean, for some people, it's like I said, it's months before you can finally start to see results. I mean, I always like to compare it to, being an alcoholic as opposed to trying to lose weight. I mean, if you're an alcoholic and you go one day without drinking, that is like significant progress. Whereas if you go to the gym for one day and you look in the mirror, it's going to be the same. I mean, you're not going to make any changes. So it's hard for so many people. But like you said, once you see that first time, we're just like, oh my God, wow. I can't believe that, I'm actually like seeing results. I mean, it can just get so addicting. I always like to compare it to like being a mad scientist where you're just trying to mix and mash your own concoctions just to see what works best for your body. But just like everything else in life, it is so much trial and error. But
Yes.
one of the questions that I also love to ask, because everyone's genetics are different, when people go to the gym, they always have that one body part when they're starting out that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And then they have that one body part that, just lags behind, and that they have to sort of train to overdrive in order for it to catch up. What were those body parts for you? I mean, I'll go first. So my back is just, I could train back once a month and it would still look good. I think that also comes from when I was in college. I also had a job where I loaded cars and trucks. So I mean, that probably is a good explanation as to why that is like that. But I'm also 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just shot. Where I mean, I have to train them into overdrive just to get any semblance of muscle on them. So yeah, that is my struggle. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
I would agree with my back and my arms. They developed super fast. My back I didn't even know about. Um, and my arms are just kind of there.
Mhm.
It's my lower body and always will be, always has been. And it takes 5 times as hard. Thankfully, I've met a lot of people who are so willing to help and give me pointers, even this far down the road into my fitness journey. I'm still learning things and still trial and error and see what I can do because for a long time I was like, well, I guess this is just how my butt's supposed to look. It's not changing at all. And now I'm back to the point of, hey, maybe I could change it.
Mhm.
Maybe I can change some things where what I'm doing in the gym. And so that's kind of fun because it adds that spark again.
Oh, 100%. Just finding new ways. And I mean, one of the big things too that I love talking about is, the plateau effect and, how people just need to just start adapting things. Because I mean, if you work out the same time or the same amount for, the same body parts, do the same exercises, I mean, you're gonna see a plateau effect. So anyone out there, I mean, just make sure that you mix and match your workouts occasionally just so that you don't reach that. But also, what was your nutrition like before you really started, adapting this lifestyle and having kids, and how has
Yeah.
that changed over time?
Okay. So this is, I think, very interesting as I reflect. I was carb queen. I loved pasta and bread, and I knew nothing about protein. I knew nothing about macros, and still am learning about macros, but I had no idea how important protein was. So I was literally a sugar aholic. I had a sweet tooth beyond belief. So I had the sugar coming from carbs, the pasta, the breads, and then I would have candy on top of it. So that's really what my nutrition looked like then. Now it's okay, I get it. I need protein to not only build muscle but maintain it and recover it and not let my body eat at it for fuel. Um, and it helps me feel satisfied during the day. So now it's protein, start the day with protein, and everything's around my protein and veggies. And that's where my body burns. Now, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go off on a little tangent.
No worries.
Same thing with nutrition.
Mhm.
I mean, especially nutrition. What I eat is not going to work for everyone, although I have kind of a basic that everybody works on. But I can't have a smidge of peanut butter, not one smidge, or I gain weight just like this. And everybody, I think, has that one thing where you just have to pay attention to your own body and trial and error. Everything is trial and error.
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I am still a carb king. Now, part of it is also because being up in Minnesota during the winter, I need to put on at least 10 to 15 pounds of fat, every winter just in order to be able to survive. Because if I walk out there and it's like it is like tonight. It's going to be like a high of like -6. I mean, you walk out in that. I mean, you got to, if you're lean, you're going to become a human popsicle even quicker. You got to have a little bit of fat to absorb. But also, I have a job where I work in a warehouse. I'm a supervisor, but still, I am constantly walking for 8 hours. So I get about, 20 miles worth of walking every single day. And on top of that, the workouts that I do before I go to work. So literally, just thousands upon thousands of carbs I need to have in order to just be able to survive. So yeah, I like that. But then, weekends when I'm not, I usually like to take a few weekends off or of working out. And since I'm not working, that's when I, baseline a little bit. But yeah, I am just basically like a calorie burning machine when I work during the weekday. So I do need to, just be stuffing myself with pasta or noodles or anything like that. But yeah, that is a huge one too, people. I mean, just to eat your protein, and that is just so important when it comes to your nutrition as well.
Here's the other thing that I've learned over the years that I used to be, I loved pasta and all that stuff. Now, for me, I started listening to my body, and all of a sudden I would have pasta and my stomach hurt like crazy. And I would have bread and my stomach would hurt like crazy. So over the years, I've actually become a little, I don't know if it's gluten intolerant or whatever. I just know it makes me sick for 5 days at a time. So I don't eat any of that, but it was more of a process of watching how my body reacted to certain foods that I ate.
Mhm.
And that was really eye opening.
Absolutely, and like we were talking about before, I mean, it's all about that trial and error and figuring out because a lot of people go to these personal trainers and they think that just like that they know everything that's going to be good for you. They're like, oh, if you eat just that exact amount of food and if you do this amount of weight, everything's going to change. But it's not because it's so different for different people. But also being a personal trainer yourself, how are you able to balance that? Because there is still that expectation from a lot of people where they just think that you just all of a sudden just have the magic pill and just immediately you can help them when a lot of it is trial and error.
Yes, there's a lot of frustration that goes along with it. I tell everybody we have to be patient and we'll tweak it along the way. And I set the expectation at the very start and say, this is what we need to do. They also have to be very honest with what they're doing because if they're not honest and we're trying to accomplish this goal, then it doesn't work, obviously. So it's big time communication, um, relationship that helps it along the
Mhm.
way. But I think everybody really thrives on a basic diet, but then it's trying to figure out, okay, do you have enough energy to take care of your kids or work out at night or, all those little things that are different for everyone. We have to we have to just adjust along the way so it works for them.
Yeah, everyone has their own struggles, everyone has their own needs. So yeah, that's why I mean I think that's one of the unsung things about personal trainers that they really, have to take into account everything about that person because not one person's going to have the same plan as the other. But how long into your journey before you decided that you wanted to become a personal trainer and you said, like, hey, this is something that I think I really enjoy doing?
Let's see. I was working out for a few years and then I would see people at the gym, the same gals at the gym and I would hear them. I would overhear them trying kind of frustrated with not getting the results they wanted. And just by watching them, I kind of thought, well, I could help them with that. And that's kind of the seed that started it all. And then also my big dream was to make my own videos. So that was my own at-home workout videos so I could help more people along the way. Um, so I decided I needed to become a personal trainer to do that. But it was helping that first person lose 50 pounds that was just, and along the way, it was like, oh my gosh, I found it. I found what I was made to do. So it was a few years before it happened.
No, oh yeah, and well, obviously, I mean, you got to also know your stuff before, so it's a lot of figuring out how things work when it comes to the body and making those changes. But one of the stereotypes that I love to bust on the show, probably my favorite, because I mean, it has gotten a lot better the last 5 years with Instagram, but there's still a significant amount of women that have that fear where if they walk in the gym and they curl one dumbbell or they do one bench press or they do one push up, they're just going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. Did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, being a personal trainer, I bet you hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
Well, I did not have it. I did not even know I was going to gain any muscle.
Mhm.
Believe it. As silly as that sounds, I had no idea that I could put on muscle like I have. I have heard that. And I've also heard that people are very scared that they're going to get hurt because I'm going to make them lift too heavy. So I don't do that. I get them in the gym and we go pretty slow. Um, but I have heard that they think they're going to put on muscle very quickly, and it just doesn't happen. There's just there's just so much that has to happen, and it takes years
Yes.
to even get anywhere close to bulky. So it's all about education at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I always love to tell the story of when I was in college, getting bigger and stronger. One of my really good friends, she came up to me, she said, like, Ryan, I noticed that, you're gaining a lot of muscle and you're really enjoying it. I want to go to the gym with you, but I'm just afraid that I'm going to get too bulky. And I told her, I said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to like clubs or when we go out to get something to eat weighs more than 90% of the dumbbells in the gym, and you're not getting an ounce of muscle from lifting that thing around 24/7. So that really convinced her and that really motivated her, and she went into the gym and made all these changes. But the most important thing that I like to talk about, I mean, especially for women, because it impacts them, I think, so much more than it does guys, is the confidence boost that you get. I mean, we see all these guys walk into the gym and they act like they own the place, and that's just how they are. But then with the women, especially, I mean, just that confidence boost where they, are so much more confident in themselves and their abilities. And I always say that's one of those things that you can take from the weight room and adapt it to every other aspect in your life. There's a few things that you can from the weight room, and that's probably the most important. But what has that been like for you? I mean, even individually, that confidence boost that you've gotten from adapting this lifestyle.
Oh, it's huge. And it's really fun to see everybody that I work with do the same thing. But that's what I've always said is it you take it from the weight room and it ripples out into your everyday life. And that is way cool. I have a little bit of an edge when I lift weights. I feel like I can, take on my 6'5" husband and that does not go well, but I feel like I can. So I do. I have a little bit of an edge where I think I can take care of myself,
Mhm.
and that's a great feeling.
Oh, absolutely. Like me and a lot of other guys take that for granted. So yeah, once you feel, yeah, I mean, I always say just the confidence. I mean, I was even me myself. I was inspired to go up and talk to people that I probably normally would have never talked to. Just
Yeah,
usually a little bit more assertive. Where yeah, so I mean, it's just it's so positive. But I also love to ask, I mean, because you're a mom of four. How are you able to find
yeah.
time in your day to, I mean, be a personal trainer and have that healthy and fit lifestyle? Because, like I was telling you before we started this podcast, I mean, being a mom, that's a full time job in and of itself. Do you just have a lot of good time management skills, or are there any other tips and secrets that you'd like to give for any of the moms out there listening as to how you're able to get all that stuff done in the day?
Well, let me go backwards because right now it's a little bit easier since all of my kids are in school.
Yep.
Let me go back to when only some of them were in school, and I did have the mom guilt, and I still have the mom guilt when it's at night and they're home, they're not at basketball practices. Um, Back when they were younger, I decided along the way, let's just say that this was just part of my day. And it was a small part of the day that would allow me to have my time and kind of refresh and be there for everybody else. It's exactly what you hear all the time, but you fill your own cup up and you can be there for everybody else.
Mhm.
And it was exactly that. So on Sundays, I would say, I'm going to work out 3 days a week. And I would look at my calendar and work around any kind of pediatrician appointments or dentist appointments or whatever the kids had going on. And I would make sure I got my 3 days in. And as soon as that happened to go to four, it was 4 days. But I realized it was just 1 hour. That was it. And it was super important to me to get that in. Even though I would be on the treadmill upstairs warming up and I would feel guilty, especially if I dropped them off to the daycare and they were crying. Oh, it was hard. It was super hard. But I knew they would end up either calling me back down or we got to spend an hour to refresh each other. So they got some playtime and I got my time. It was just a non negotiation. I mean, that's what I say now. It was, you don't negotiate that. It was like just brushing your teeth. It's just something you do.
I mean, and that's what so many people talk about, and that's one thing. I mean, I honestly couldn't agree with you more. Where that's something that you basically have to do because otherwise, yeah, you will feel guilty, or your brain might come up with all these excuses as to why you, I mean, can't work out. So yeah, it's just
Yes.
having that mindset because a lot of people get into this and they start losing weight, but they don't have the mindset change that you need to have as well. So when they get healthy, then they just don't realize that what you need to be able willing to accept the sacrifices that are going to come into that. So, I mean,
Yes.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more on that. But now, I mean, having your kids as well. What was you said you started working out when when you were having kids. What were your pregnancies like? Were you very active when you were pregnant, or
Oh,
what
yes.
advice do you give for moms who are still trying to not just sit on the couch the whole 9 months, or just relax? I mean, you still for there have been studies that countless studies that have proven that yeah, you can be super active and you can work out. I mean, you see all these posts all the time of these moms still working out and still looking great. So what was
Yes.
your story like with that?
Oh, I worked out through all of my
Mhm.
pregnancies, and it definitely helps with the delivery and recovering afterwards, and then also beyond afterwards, like having the energy that you're up all night with the babies and all that. But it definitely helps when you're pregnant to keep the aches and pains away because you're keeping that blood moving and you're keeping those joints moving, even though everything's growing.
Mhm.
You kind of keep them moving, and it just doesn't allow anything to lock up
Mhm.
and become a
Yep.
pain in the butt, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I see some of these
Yeah.
photos of some of these ladies that like still have like a six pack at like 9 months pregnant or whatever,
Oh,
and I'm
that's
like,
insane.
what? Like what? I was like, what do you do? So that when it gets to that point, I'm like, what? I was like, that baby's gonna come out really jacked then, I guess. I mean, if
Right.
that thing's a six pack in the womb, but
Baby's coming out
yeah,
too.
oh yeah, and so yeah, I mean, and it's just so inspiring that and like I say too, if you're pregnant too, I mean, it's also a good thing to just have that time, just have your me time because like you were talking about too, even working out now, I mean, that's so many people's therapy where they're just able to, just talk to themselves and get through all the issues that they're dealing with and just the peace and quiet. So yeah, I mean, that is a great way for therapy, in my opinion. I mean, that's what I do. That's what so many of my friends do. So yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
recommend it more.
And
What
then
your
going back to the
Mhm,
pregnancy,
mhm.
it's super important you lose the weight as fast as you can.
Yep.
I mean, in a nice, safe, healthy way, whatever,
Mhm,
whatever. But you do it before you start having other kids
mhm,
because we had not because it's just important. The faster you lose that weight, the less chance of it is to become like a serious weight problem
mhm.
down the road. We had three of our kids 2 years apart, two and a half, two, but our last two are 14 and a half months
Oh
apart.
wow.
So yeah, it was um, I was almost back to pre-pregnancy weight when we got pregnant with our fourth. And I think that really saved some heartache for me or some really hard times in the gym because I didn't have 15 pounds plus another pregnancy to lose.
Mhm,
So that's what I always say about pregnancies is
mhm.
just lose the weight as fast as you can.
Yep. No, no, yeah, and that makes me feel bad about my grandma because she had 7 kids in a span of, I think, 9 years.
Oh, bless her heart.
So yeah, and but she still got really, really skinny. So I was like, okay, I don't even know what she was doing. I mean, maybe she only ate like 400 calories or something like that. But like, yeah, I have no idea. I mean, I mean, that to me is just astounding. But yeah, like you were talking about though too. I mean, just losing that weight because yeah, I always say it's kind of like a bank account. You have a negative balance, and you got to put some money back in it to get it up to zero. And that's also with pregnancy. I mean, you don't want to obviously gain 15 pounds per pregnancy and then have like like 8 kids in a row, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, why am I 300 pounds? So
Right.
yeah, yeah, that's yeah, that's so important. But also, what do your kids think about having a mom that's like really fit and really in shape? Because I had a health and fitness expert come on, and he talked about how important it is, especially with the obesity crisis happening now, that kids have that positive example from their parents. That's probably the number one thing that's going to help lead the kid then to having a healthy and fit lifestyle. And, not just craving junk food, not just becoming super obese. But what do your kids think about having a mom that's really really active? Do they think it's great, or is it like some of the people that we have now where they're just like, oh, I don't want to work out, all the time because some of these parents, they sort of try to get their kids to adapt the lifestyle too.
Oh, right. I keep them separate.
Mhm,
I think they think it's cool.
mhm,
Um, that's what I hope.
mhm,
But we are a very active family, so all of the kids play basketball, and they all do not want to go through any of my workouts. That's the one thing they do know. But I still make them. Believe it or not, my older son wants to always outlift me. He
mhm,
wants to lift, and he totally can, and has since he was young, right?
yep.
But he just always wants to prove to his mom that he can do it. But they like it. They know it's all a part of it. And as far as like nutrition, eating, and all that stuff, I don't make them have my eating
Thank
habits.
God.
They eat well.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
they need more than I
Mhm,
have.
yep.
So, and I needed that same thing when I was
Mhm.
their age. So it's really separate. It's not a strict household as far as that goes.
Do you look at them and get sad knowing that, I mean, they have that metabolism, that young metabolism where they can basically eat whatever they want and they don't have to gain and they don't gain a pound from it?
Yes.
I mean, I'm
And I never had that when I was their age. I've never had it.
Oh, well, I'm 24, so I'm slowly starting to get off of that. But I still, yeah, I remember even after high school, all those like sports practice, going to a burger place, having a burger and large fries and like a milkshake and a couple other things and not gaining an ounce and just yep, people, everyone out there for listening to that and you're younger, just enjoy it while it lasts because it's gonna one of these days it's gonna hit you like an iceberg. We're gonna have a milkshake, and then realize like, oh crap, my stomach got a little
Oh,
flabby just from having that. So yeah,
yes.
it's yep,
It
and
happens overnight.
yeah,
It's
it,
no fun.
it happens over. Yeah. So everyone out there, just enjoy it while you can. But now I like to ask these two questions to all of our health and fitness guests that we have on. So for the first one, I mean, for me, there's so many positives that happen when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But there was a negative for me. I mean, you're gonna get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're
Oh,
gonna get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still home with my
true.
parents, like I said. So, every time they come home with groceries, I basically lift the car into the driveway and then lift all the groceries and carry them in. Has that been a similar struggle for you where people just take one look at you or or they just know that you work out a lot and they just assume that you can do favors like that for them?
No favors, but I'll see a lot of people at the grocery store and they never want me to look in their
Hmm.
carts. So they always think I'm judging what they're eating.
Hmm.
And I secretly do. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't want them seeing
Yeah.
what's in my cart a lot of the times. No, I don't have that.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's lucky though too. Oh, I was gonna say I bet your husband gets that though. I mean, being 6'5", because I always say it's a
Yeah.
double edged sword. I mean, being 6'3", I could have zero muscle at all, and people just be like, "Oh, tall guy, come over here and
Right.
do it." So
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yes.
Literally every other weekend last summer, friends were moving out of their parents' house, and they're like, "Ryan, come over and help me lift this furniture." I got to a point where I was like, "Okay, just as long as I get my workout in before then, because I don't want to get too tired lifting your crappy furniture where I'm not able to work out afterwards." But it also makes you realize that they do sort of appreciate the hard work that you're putting in. But now, probably my favorite question that I'll ask you, and again, everyone, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there. But when it comes to clothes for fit and healthy women, I mean, fit and healthy men have their own separate issues. But for women, I mean, I always like to say, like if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time that can be a
Yes.
struggle. So for
Oh,
you, what have been some ways that you have found that you're able to sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
I wear gym clothes
Hmm.
all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Hmm.
mean, I have a hard time with style, and I like to look like I work out, so
Hmm.
I don't like the blousier stuff and the trendy stuff a lot of times. So, um, gosh, I that's a good question.
Hmm.
I really just stay with the basics, jean skirts and tank tops
Yep.
and jean shorts and
Yep.
jeans if I can find them. So really, it's basic.
Oh, and I
Yeah.
always say, anyone out there who's coming up with a clothing line. I mean, I had two fashion people come on. I told them, I was like, hey, I've had all these guests and they're willing to pay money for it, but they haven't got on it yet. So, I mean, anyone out there, I mean, I will let you patent that idea. I mean, even though it was technically my idea, I will let you because there's such a high demand for it that, I mean, I'm willing. Yeah. So, just anyone out there, make something up. I mean, you're guaranteed to make a lot of money with that. But
Yes.
I'm always interested by people's training. So for your training, what do you like to do specifically? Are you more sort of like a low rep high intent, or a low rep, low intensity, or a high rep high intensity, or do you like to mix it up a lot?
I would say I'm high
Hmm.
intensity, kind of a medium high rep. I have started doing a little bit of low rep training, to mix it up a little bit, but I'm definitely high intensity. I
Hmm.
mean, like to jump around and bounce around, and I'm not quite a runner. No, I'm not a runner at all.
Yeah.
But I like to do the burpees and the hard I like to do hard stuff. I like to find out what I really can do. And I don't think except okay, so I've had back surgery and 4 foot surgeries. So I know there's some things that I have to work around, but this year has been my year where I'm like, no, I'm going to get strong. I'm going to make sure everything's strong and see what I can really do. So that's been fun to try and figure out, hey, I can do a headstand, not handstand, but headstand. Holy cow. So that's been fun.
Hmm. So what have your foot surgeries been for? Is it just have you had broken feet, or what's that been for?
I've said I got attacked by ninjas because I
Mm.
hate saying it was for bunions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the first 2 failed, so I had to have 2 more to
Mhm.
fix everything.
Oh wow. And that's, yeah, I mean, especially when we have people dealing with all these. I mean, you're probably like our third or fourth guest that has actually had like foot problems. So I always say, that's interesting because when you're working out, I mean, unless you're doing like curls and you're sitting in a chair, I mean, you need to have your feet, healthy in order to even, get a lot of these workouts in. And thank God that you said that you're not a runner, because I mean, some of these runners that I have on, I'm just like, I don't get how you do it, because I'm one of those people where I run for 2 minutes and then I'm just like, I'm bored. This is
Yeah,
boring. Like,
yeah.
what am I gonna? Even if I'm listening to good music, I'll be like, so what? And then I've had friends that they're like, hey, I'm going on like a 5 mile run. You want to join me? And I'm like, no. Like, what's the point? I get bored of like 2 miles. So yeah, I mean, some of those runner people, I'm like, yeah, it's very very interesting to talk to some of those people just because they're just such the polar opposite. But now also, I mean, getting back to you and personal training, what would you say? I mean, how has it evolved? Has personal training evolved at all since you got started? And in what ways do you like to look for to try to get, because there's so many new trends. I always like to say, like every year there's a new way to lose weight, there's a new exercise equipment. What are some ways that you sort of like to be ahead of the game with all these methods so that you are very well informed for when people come up and ask you?
Well, I like to know everything that's coming out,
Mhm.
just for the fact of what you just said. So when I'm asked, I can answer. And also, I like to keep everything fun
Mhm.
for everybody. I mean, that's the main thing that I like to let everybody know is this can be fun. I mean, we're going to put in some hard work, but it can be a lot of fun. So I
Mhm.
like to have different ways to go to. Um, but the one thing that really frustrates me is there's so much information out there, that a lot of people are so confused at what to do. And sometimes that confusion stops them in their tracks
Mhm,
where they just don't even start because of all of the information.
mhm.
So I like to keep everything pretty simple, but at the same time, fresh and new.
Well, and unfortunately, there's like 100 new diets every year that come out too, where
Oh
people are just,
gosh.
just going. But if I mean, I know everyone's different, but what would you say is probably your most popular diet that you like to advise your clients to, or your any of the people that you help follow?
It's so simple.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not, it doesn't even have a name, I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure, but it's focus on your proteins and your vegetables.
Hmm.
And everything else will fill in the gaps.
Hmm.
But don't get rid of anything. The thing that I say is we should be able to eat everything except for fried foods because they have no nutritional value at all. So that's the one thing that I say get rid of it because that's going to kill your progress no matter how much you're working out.
Hmm.
So it's really protein and a little bit of carbs because our bodies need everything.
Yep.
I don't believe in the whole extreme one way or the other. It's let's keep it simple and stay consistent.
Yeah, I honestly, all these diets too, where like people deprive themselves of carbs or they deprive themselves
Yeah.
of other types of foods, where it's just like, no, it's like you need that type of stuff. So yeah, there, and I mean, I could do an entire 15-hour podcast, talking about all these
Oh,
individual diets and like tearing them down because there are just so many to do that. I mean, it is just such a struggle, just even wrapping my brain around, all of that stuff.
study a few years ago, I think out of Israel. Don't quote me on that, but it finally said what I believe and we talked about at the beginning is everybody's different. And they finally did a study on how some people's bodies, no matter what the container says the caloric intake would be or the calorie count is, it could hit your body different. So, or my body. So if it says 200 calories and my body reacts somehow differently, it could be 3,
Mhm.
right? So all of a sudden, it's not just reading a label and figuring it out by that way. So that was a pretty interesting study.
Well, and I always find fascinating with, on the cans where it says, like the percent of the daily value of calories that you need to have. And it's like, it's based on like a 2000 calorie diet. And I was like, okay, I'm 6'3", 210 pounds. Like I am not going to be on a 2000 a day calorie diet. So
Yep.
I always find that funny when you look at that. And then people like, I've had so many, especially girls where they're like, yeah, like this says it's like 17% of your total fat for the day. And I was like, well, for me, you probably want to put that down to like 5% of my total fat for the day. But it's just, yeah, that's why I just, with all of that stuff. And like you said though too, I mean that doesn't surprise me one bit how some food might affect people in different ways because yeah, like we were talking about before, everyone always has that one bloat food too where if you eat it, you're just going to bloat and just balloon up no matter what. So I mean, and just finding all that stuff out again, such a time process that a lot of people don't want to hear, but I mean it is going to take so much time to figure that out. But one of the most important questions that I love to ask because I don't think it's ever talked about at all on Instagram or any of those any other sources for personal training is sleep. I mean, sleep is the most important thing when it comes to recovery. I mean, you can
It's
anyone
true.
anyone can argue with me on that, and I'll take them down. But I mean,
Yes.
it's just so important. It's one of the most important things you can do. I had a sleep specialist call from all the way from the UK, and he called me from Oxford. Well, first of all, he had one of those British accents where you felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him.
Right.
So I was talking to him and I was like, okay, you're just gonna talk the entire podcast because I don't want to, I'm just gonna listen. But we talked the whole time about it, and people just don't realize how important that is. Because I always say there's no better feeling than waking up after such a hard workout and getting that proper amount of sleep. I mean, there's no better feeling in the world. But what is your recommended amount of sleep that you like to tell people, and how much sleep do you try to get out of the day? I mean, I know being a mom, I mean that you usually aren't going to get that much sleep. But what in an ideal world, what would you like to see with your sleep schedule?
Ideally, I would love 8 hours,
Mhm.
7 to 8 hours. I would love that. Wait, probably, yeah, closer to 8. Right now, I shouldn't even tell you this, but I'm probably getting about 5 hours of sleep, 5.5. And I I read a gal say this and I related to it a little bit, which is bad. But she prided herself on not needing a lot of sleep. And that's not the way to go. It's just your body needs that time to do everything it needs to do everything that you need to do the next day. And I get that. So I'm trying to change that. Um, so I recommend 7 to 8. 8 to 9 is really pushing it when you have young kids.
Mhm.
But um, the other reason is my kids like to talk at night. when I'm putting them to bed. And I'm not going to say, "Oh, sorry, honey, time's up." I'm just not. I'm
Well,
just
that's what
not.
they invented duct tape for, though.
Okay, okay.
No, so that actually leads into a funny story. So, my one time, my older brother was babysitting us, and he wanted a raise because he didn't think he was getting paid enough for it. So he duct taped me and my little brother to chairs with mouth, and then but we were in on the joke too. Like we thought it was funny. So then, and he left a note inside that said, "Give me a raise," or like, "Give me a raise or else." So then when my parents came home, they thought it was funny, so they gave him like a 50-cent raise or something like that.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, just fun stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, like you were talking
I
about what?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead. You're the guest. You can go ahead.
Well, the thing that I notice is when I'm not getting enough sleep, I am bloated.
Mhm.
And I hope that helps somebody else out there,
Yep.
because that one surprises me. That, wait a
Mhm.
minute, just because I'm not getting enough sleep, that happens? Yep, it does.
Well, and for me too, like I sometimes, get when I'm editing these podcasts late at night or when I get home from work late, I sometimes, I'm asleep by like 3 or 4 in the morning just because I work until midnight and then I come home and get something to eat or I might go out and get something to eat.
Mm.
And but just sometimes, I mean, I get 5 to 6 hours, I'd say probably on average during the weekdays, but then on the weekends, I get like 10 hours. So I try to compensate for that. But there was an interesting study that came out that I mean, it's been verified by a lot of scientists. And I talked to the guest that I had on with sleep and he said, there is a study saying that if you get usually around the 6 to 7 hour range, actually on average people live a couple of years longer than the people who get the longer. I think it's just because if you get more sleep than you need to, then your body can sometimes, it doesn't have the right amount. It kind of recovers too much to the point of where it thinks that you're better than you really are, where then like it's not as prepared for things. I don't know. I'll leave you a link to that podcast because he explained it in a
Okay.
way. First of all, with that accent, he explained it in a way that I could probably never, comprehend and understand. But yeah, I mean, that's why I love to bring up sleep because it is just, I mean, not that many people know about it, or I mean, they know about it, but they don't know the importance of it. So yeah, anything to help.
Did
Oh
he
god.
happen to say anything about if you miss some sleep? So let's say he recommends six
Mhm.
hours and you're continually getting 5 hours. Did he say how much sleep you need to make up for that 1 hour?
He said so. We asked questions similar to that, like not exactly, but like he was one of those where I asked because in college, I was one of those guys where I pulled an all nighter at least, like once every 2 weeks or like once a month, just studying. And he said, what's fascinating about that is that I mean, even if you don't sleep at all, or you have times like that where you sleep, like 5 hours when you're supposed to be getting like 6 or 7, all it takes is one night for your body to be fully recovered for that. I mean, so
Oh,
and it's weird because like I've had nights, all nighters, and then the very next day, I get like 8 or 9 hours of sleep and I feel perfectly fine. And he says, yeah, that's the one thing that they're trying to figure out about sleep is why that is, where you can go, where some even the extremes, like some of the Marines that I've had on where they talk about, like, and when you're in a combat zone, you get really sleep deprived because obviously you don't want to fall asleep if you're in a
right.
so they're sometimes they're going with like 2 3 days without sleep, and then they go back and they sleep for like 12 hours and then they feel fine and everything's well and rest. So it's one thing that they're really trying to study. But he said also there is that thing where a lot of people believe that then like if I go like 5 days sleeping 5 hours, I need to sleep like 11 hours then to add up because it's like an hour for each time. But he said what's fascinating about that is just if you go back to your normal schedule, your body will then shoot yourself with adrenaline, which will make it feel like it's normal as opposed to, sleeping for the 12 hours. So yeah, it was very, very interesting talking to him. And like I said, again, I will send you a link to that because
Okay.
believe me, he can explain these answers way better than I can. But
Well,
now,
that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it was so great having him on. Like my goal for this is also to get like all in English speakers from all the countries. I mean, I'm only missing New Zealand. I've had Aussies on, I've had Canadians on, I've had Britons on, so I'm just missing New Zealand people. But yeah, so if I can get one on, that would be great. But now we go to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire, as I ask Lindsay here about a dozen or so health and fitness questions that I ask all of the guests that we've had on the show.
Hey,
So for our first one, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
I love Eminem, Lose Yourself.
Mhm. Yep. That
It's a
I mean, nothing really is better than that. I mean, that's a great one. I mean, for me, I'm more of a cheesy, like I gotta have my cheesy old school '80s music, just the crappy poppy music. Where I mean, I have like the Rocky Four soundtrack that I gotta listen to. It's just yeah, that's just me. But I have a problem. So I have a gym at home, which is nice. Like 75% of the time I work out there. It's not like a nice gym. It's just just random barbells, dumbbells, and like a Smith machine. But yeah, other than that, so I mean, but when I do go to a normal gym. I'm one of those guys where I gotta wait for the beat to drop when I'm working out. So like I'll be doing like lat pull downs, and then I'll be sitting like this, and I'll let people walk to me. People walk up to me and be like, "Hey, are you all right?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm just waiting for the beat to drop." And they're like, "Oh, did you pull at your back or something?" And I'm like, "Nope, just waiting for the beat drop." So I'm known
Good.
throughout my gym as the guy that waits for the beat to drop. So
I love that.
yep, yep. And I always say, if only they would make a song where it was just the beat dropping constantly, that would be the ultimate pump up. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, well, The Rock comes to mind
Mhm,
first and foremost because of the intensity.
mhm.
I think that would be way cool.
I gotta say, you're gonna be like our 120th health and fitness guest
Yeah.
on today, and that's been our answer at least 100 of the times. I mean, and I completely understand it. I mean, The Rock by far. I mean, but just seeing his workouts, and just he eats like 10 pounds of asparagus like every day, and I'm just like, dude, like you're going too hard. Like just slow down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'd be more of like an Arnold just because it's Arnold, and I love to hear him yell at me in his Austrian accent. That would
Oh,
be
now that would be
just.
cool.
Oh yeah, that would be cool too. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Hmm, good questions. I think Kelly Ripa.
Yep. I,
Yeah.
I always say she's been one of my favorite celebrities for females, at least when it comes to just she is in really great shape. But I mean, I one of the things, my friend actually went to a taping of one of her shows, and I was like, oh well, how was it or whatever. He goes, one of the biggest surprises is that she's like so small in person. Like she looks a lot bigger in the camera, but she's like 5'4", like 5'3" or something like that. So then she's like,
I, like this
yeah, she's like
tiny.
super tiny too, but she has great arms though too, so her arms make her look bigger than she actually is. So yeah, that's one thing that he said. He's like, because like she meets people, or like in between commercials, like she'll go and say hi to people and like go up and talk to them. So he's like, yeah, she came up to us, and I was like, wow, she's like really really tiny. But yeah, Kelly Ripa would probably be, for females at least, that would be
Yeah.
one that I'd like to train too, just because she is in great shape, and I mean she's getting there age wise. So I mean she's still in just
Yeah.
really really good shape. And for guys, I'd probably just be like, I have no idea for guys. I'll have to think about that one. But
Okay.
now, what is one item?
Oh, I know who. I
Mhm.
know who.
Yeah.
Who else? Matt Damon,
Oh yeah.
because of all of the movies.
Yeah. That too. Matt Damon would be a great one. Yeah, as well. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Oh gosh, Greek yogurt.
Yep.
That's like my go-to. If especially when I'm coming in from training
Mhm.
my sessions and I'm just super hungry, that's super fast to just grab and eat it so I don't eat any junk food.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Oh, I always say, I mean, chicken and egg whites are by far most popular answers, but the most surprising one, hands down, a lot of the bodybuilders talk about, how they have to have mustard because it's zero in calories and zero in fat. So they just douse their chicken and eggs and egg whites and mustard just to give it a little
Yes.
bit of flavor. But I always tell them, it's like, you might want to reevaluate your life and things if you're having to do that to give your chicken a little bit of flavor. But yeah, whatever they do, I mean, more power to them. But I would never do that. But now, out of all of your followers on Instagram, what would be one thing that you think they'd be surprised to find out about you if they met you in person?
Oh my gosh. Find out about me.
Or they'd be surprised,
That-
like, if they
You
talked to
know
you and,
what?
like, actually got to meet
I
you.
think that I do really have all of this energy for
Mhm.
real. That
Yeah,
it's not just a show.
yeah. How
Yeah.
much caffeine do you pump into your system every day then?
Sometimes none.
Yeah.
No, I'm a coffee drinker.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I have a boss at my job who, I mean, he has a super stressful job, so he chugs like 3 or 4 Red Bulls before every single day, and he is just off the walls, but that's what he needs to get. So yeah, I mean, whenever I meet super super energetic people, I was like, okay. Now I used to be one of those where I was just off the walls, bouncing off the walls, all the time. But now as I've matured, I've slowed down a little bit. But yeah, just that high energy, it can be hard to maintain. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I think people would find interesting. Is like, oh wow, she's actually really able to keep all that up. But now, what is one thing, if you had the all-knowing power and people came up to you and said, like, you could change anything about, like, the health and fitness lifestyle, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
I hit on it a little bit, but everybody's um this is my opinion why we have so many diets that come out every year. Everybody wants a little take and get a little money from putting their own idea
Mhm,
out there without real studying
mhm.
going on. And I would like that to dwindle down and not have so much information so it confuses everybody. I want everything to slim down and simplify.
My biggest pet peeve with that is it's very similar, is also like some of these people that they do like a bodybuilding show, they just do one show and then they retire, and then they just say that then since they did a show that they're like, I have all this knowledge where I can help you out. They don't even get certified as a personal trainer, and then they think that they can start offering advice to people, and that really saturates the market and makes it look like, like anyone can do it. Where it's like, no, you should. I mean, believe me, there are some people that aren't certified that know a lot more than people that are certified, but it's not as much as a lot of people would like to think. Where I mean, it's like, get your certification before you start talking to people. It's just one of those things where it's like everyone has to do it. You should have to do it too. So that's one of my huge pet peeves that I
That's a
love
good
about it.
point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I've seen that a lot where they don't really have any clout behind their
Mm-hmm.
name. They just have maybe a number of followers,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
people assume a lot, and that's
Yep.
dangerous.
Yep. I'd
Very
always like
dangerous.
to say, if that's one thing that I could change, I would as well. But now we go to the fun part of our questionnaire. So, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Um, the Food Network, the
That's just torture. Why
worst
are you
cooks.
doing that? Why are you doing that? That's just torture.
Okay. Then I'll make it fun. What's the one on Netflix? The president, and it was,
House of Cards?
yes, that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of
Yep.
things about that. I mean, my parents love that, so I haven't watched it though, so I definitely need to get into it. But now everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Hmm. I don't watch a lot of TV. This
Mhm.
is hard, Ryan.
That's why
And
I'm thinking about changing these questions, because so many of my guests, I realize it's like, if there's all these moms and especially all these other people that have all these jobs, like they're not gonna have enough time to watch TV. But some of them,
right.
yeah,
I love cartoons.
cartoons. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I would watch cartoons over everything. I mean, I don't mind taking my kids to all those movies because
Yeah.
I like them just as much.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe
I'll
that's guilty pleasure is
Oh,
cartoon.
yeah, cartoon movie. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's actually the first time that we've heard cartoon movies. So that is actually the first time. So I write these down just because once I reach a certain number of
Oh,
podcasts, I'm just gonna release like a graph that like shows our most popular answers and
oh, nice.
things like that. But my guilty pleasure movie, again, all my guy friends, close your ears. You'll never hear me admit this in person, but Princess Bride. It's my guilty pleasure
Oh,
movie.
that's a good one.
Yep, it was on. It was on last night about 10 o'clock, or no, like it was like 1 o'clock because I just got home. So I watched it in its entirety and then I went to sleep. So yeah, I mean it's one of those movies where if it comes on, I gotta watch it. So
Have to
again,
watch
all my guy friends, I'll never admit it in person. You're gonna have to listen to the podcast if you want to hear me admit that. But now our two final questions of the questionnaire: what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
my favorite would have to be like the one shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
just a one shoulder. It could be tank top, it can be long sleeve, whatever. I love that look.
When you got arms like that, you got to show them off too. That's what I tell all these people. It's like if
It's
it
true.
if it was me, I'd be snow throwing a -20 with like cut off sleeves and just being like, oh yeah, it's fine. So yeah, I mean,
I'm fine. I'm not cold
yeah,
at
oh
all.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yep.
um, my least favorite. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so let's just keep it nice and simple.
Come
Just
on,
kidding.
yeah, yeah,
There's actually two
yeah.
bell bottoms,
Hmm.
like the really really flared legs,
Yep.
and even though I said off the shoulder, I don't like the cold shoulder. That's just for me. It looks really good on other people, but I don't dig it.
Yep. I mean, bell bottom is our second most popular answer, but for me, I mean flannel, just because being in the upper Midwest where it's gonna be cold all like for 8 months out of the year, you gotta have that to keep you comfy. But my least favorite, my dad ruined this in the late '90s scene. I mean, all these photos of when I was like 4 or 5, fanny packs. I
Oh
don't.
yes.
Yep. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I always have to put this asterisk there because I have some women who talk about like, "Hey, I love fanny packs." Women can rock a fanny pack. Don't get me wrong, but guys trying to rock one, it's like stop. And if there's one thing I always say that I could do with this podcast, I mean, I know fanny packs are making a slight spread, so if I could stop the spread of fanny packs, I am more than willing to do that. So yeah, I mean, and that's no doubt. But now for our final question of the questionnaire, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh my gosh, to dream bigger and to really find out what you can do with time management and really going for it and
Mhm.
working hard. Like I thought I worked hard at whatever I was doing. It didn't even really matter what it was. I had no clue what it meant to work hard,
Mhm.
to really focus on something and go for it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with you that I couldn't agree with you more on that because yeah, it's it's one of those things when you're young, you just think, that you're gonna have it all planned out too, and that you just don't realize that things are gonna happen in your life where you're just gonna have to adjust. So that's one thing that I would tell myself. But now these two final questions before we wrap things up. So for our first one, I mean, if we were to talk to you again a year from today, where would you like to be at? I mean, just with your life, with your personal training career, where would you like to be if we talked a year from today?
I would love to be helping more people online. Um, Traveling, having a better balance as far as really being present
Mm-hmm.
when my family is around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to happen right away. So a year from now, no problem. But that's just something that is, I need more a little, I hate the word balance
Mm-hmm.
because that just, there's no such thing in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I really want to be in the moment wherever I am and make sure I don't
Mm-hmm.
intersect them.
Yeah. No.
Um, yeah.
Oh,
And go
oh
ahead.
no, you can go ahead. No, you're the guest. You go ahead.
I um I think that's all. I mean, I'm going to have a senior next year in high school.
Wow.
So I know I am I really just want to soak up every ounce of time that we have.
Does he play basketball? Is he on the
Yeah.
varsity and all that? Okay, so I give him one piece of advice that I would honestly wish that I told my 18-year-old self: enjoy your senior year. Because
Okay.
honestly, if that's one thing, like my senior year went by not quick, but like it's one of those things where now looking back on it, I mean, I wasn't one of those guys that, like I peaked in high school or anything, but just enjoy that. Enjoy the fact that, like, the biggest thing I could tell him is enjoy the fact that a lot of these, your friends in high school, you guys are going to grow apart. Just enjoy that one last year where you guys are all together and just have a blast, because you will. I mean, even though college was great for me, don't get me wrong, I still sometimes
Yeah.
look back on, that senior year and just think of, I had a lot of fun times, but just like, man, if I could go back and play high school sports one last time or stuff like that. So enjoy every last minute of it is the best piece of advice that I would give him. And again, you guys, everyone, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page. I'll leave a link to her website. I mean, everyone, go and check her out. And if you have any questions to her about, being an online coach or anything, definitely go and ask her. I mean, she'd be more than willing to help you out. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, and we cannot thank Lindsi enough for coming on. I mean, you were a great guest, great to talk to you. I mean, it was great seeing your dog as well. I mean, we enjoy having the furry little friends on. But again,
Yes.
you guys, links to all of her stuff down below. I highly, highly recommend it. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.